Something just happened in the Sherrone Moore case that could seriously impact the direction of everything moving forward. There is now an evidentiary hearing that's been granted by Judge Cedric Simpson. And let me tell you, this is not just a routine move. This is the kind of development that can change what evidence the jury sees or whether certain arguments will even make it to trial at all. If you're new to this case, here's a quick rundown as to why this former football coach got arrested in the first place. Let's listen in.
This is Sherrone Moore, this is his wife, and this was his executive assistant and his mistress.
Former University of Michigan football coach Sherrone Moore is appearing in court. On Wednesday, as you may know, he was fired as coach, and then shortly after he was arrested. Now we have learned that he's facing 3 charges: home invasion, stalking, and breaking and entering.
According to reports, the University of Michigan had previously investigated if Sherrone and his assistant Paige Shiver were having a relationship, but both of them denied it at the time. And then on Monday, December 8th, Paige allegedly broke up with Sherrone, and then she and her civil attorney, a woman named Heidi Sharp, went to the school's head attorney to admit this relationship. 2 days later, Sherrone was fired for violating university policy by engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. And after he was fired, he then went to Paige's apartment and allegedly entered it illegally and threatened to harm himself. While Sherrone is there, Paige calls her attorney, Heidi Sharp, and then Heidi calls the police. And this is where some of the problems start.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who finds it sus that the alleged victim in this case calls her attorney, not 911, immediately after the alleged incident takes place. And it's her attorney who followed up with a call to 911.
Subject just called the caller, told her there's a male at the location and the house attacking her. He's been stalking her for months. For the internal units, referencing domestic, we just get big calls. That's one's wife. And on her saying that the subject is suicidal. Or losing his job today. That's actually going to be out you, but if you want to head that way.
Now, before we get into this update, I'm happy to report that Judge Cedric Simpson will be presiding over the case in this phase. And I have to say this, Judge Cedric Simpson is one of the most thorough judges I've seen. He pays attention to every detail and he doesn't let anything slide. You can tell that he takes fairness seriously and he values getting it right. I have a lot of respect for how he runs his courtroom, and his legacy speaks for itself.
It at worst is false and an outright lie, or at best it is misleading. And particularly when it talks about the 10 to 12 phone calls and text messages, there's not one mention of the fact that those to which they could determine were work related. That is a huge, in this court's perspective, that's a huge omission. There's like a statement from the complainant about these 12 calls, making them seem as though they are somehow related to some type of harassing behavior because there's nothing on the other side to say what it may be. And then the immediate statement afterwards is a text message that came after the incidents or later on the 10th, after the issue regarding the complainant's home. So for those reasons, the court, in exercising its discretion, is going to grant the motion for an evidentiary hearing in this case.
So now let's talk about what just happened in the Sherrone Moore case. Sherrone Moore has officially been granted an evidentiary hearing by Judge Cedric Simpson, and this is not just another routine appearance. Let's break down why this matters. But before we do that, I want to remind you that Sherrone Moore has been on pretrial release under these following conditions.
Mr. Moore, could you state your name, please?
Sherrone Moore.
Sir, you are not to use alcohol, marijuana, or any other controlled substance that is not prescribed to you. You are not to possess or purchase a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You are not to engage in criminal conduct of any kind whatsoever. You may not leave the state of Michigan without permission of the court. Prior to your release, you will be placed on a GPS tether. You will not be released before that GPS tether is placed upon you. You must continue all mental health treatment as a condition of your bond.
An evidentiary hearing is when both sides are allowed to present evidence. They get to call witnesses and argue specific legal issues in front of the judge before trial takes place. This isn't just paperwork being filed. This is testimony. This is cross-examination. And this is where arguments are tested under scrutiny. For a judge to grant an evidentiary hearing, there has to be a legitimate legal question that needs deeper examination. Now that's significant. It means the court sees enough substance in the motion to take the time to examine it carefully. Now, depending on the specifics in this case, the evidentiary hearing will address issues like whether certain evidence should be suppressed, whether rights were violated, whether statements were obtained improperly, or whether there were procedural errors that could affect this case moving forward.
If I have, it's, and I think everybody's right in terms of there needs to be a picture painted for the magistrate. If Ms. Sharp is indicating that there's all of this other stuff that's going on, and so if I'm the magistrate, that's what I'm hearing, then I'm hearing that this individual says that she has no more to say to him, and then there are these dozens of calls and text messages that occur over the next 2 days prior to this incident. Frankly, you'd be leading me to believe the negative because you're not giving me anything else.
What happens at this hearing could shape the direction of the entire case. Now I want to remind you there was critical information omitted from the case when Sherrone Moore got arrested. Specifically, the fact that there was a business relationship between Moore and his mistress, which required them to exchange text messages in an official capacity. That would mean that not every text message between the two were of a personal nature and would therefore be excluded from being classified as him stalking her.
Not sure I follow, Judge. Leading you to
meaning
negative.
that these communications couldn't have been for any other purpose. I mean, because it's equally as plausible that I guess that they could be for the purposes of harassment as for the purposes of work relationships. But by placing it on the record this way before the magistrate, you've given the magistrate no alternative but to believe that it is a continuation of the behavior that Ms. Sharp describes, which I don't know if substantiated or not.
You see, that kind of trickery, it's not going to make it past Judge Simpson. Trust me, he's very keen and pays very close attention to detail. Let's take a look in the courtroom to hear what the prosecution said about those text messages.
I think the best I can offer the court along those lines, with the exception of not having sworn to the fact that they were employed together at the U of M, that Detective Welker passed along the information that was given to her, swore to and testified to the information that was given to her.
Well, I got a problem with that too.
Yeah.
Because part of the problem is my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but from listening to Ms. Michael's argument, I think I was right now. She has the other text messages from those 2 days, right? Somewhere she saw those. But doesn't say anything about them.
If certain evidence is ruled inadmissible, that could weaken the prosecution's position. In fact, this case could get thrown out. If, on the other hand, the judge sides with the state and allows everything in, that's going to strengthen their hand going forward. Either way, this is a pivotal moment. Now let's talk about the timing. The evidentiary hearing is scheduled for March 1st, 2026. That gives both sides time to prepare thoroughly, and attorneys will likely be reviewing discovery, organizing witnesses, refining arguments, and possibly filing additional motions between now and then. And sometimes, not always, evidentiary hearings can open the door to other developments, plea negotiations, narrowing of charges, even strategic shifts in approach. We don't yet know the full scope of what will be argued at this particular hearing, but the fact that it was granted tells us this. There are issues that the court believes are worth examining on the record. And because Judge Simpson is known for being meticulous, this hearing is going to be very detailed and deliberate. This is only a step, which matters a lot though in the legal system. So between now and March 1st, we should be watching for things like, are additional motions filed? Does new evidence surface? Does either side shift their public posture? And are there any signs of negotiations taking place behind the scenes? Cases can pivot at evidentiary hearings and sometimes dramatically, so mark your calendars for March 1st. I'll continue to follow this case closely and I'll keep you updated as we learn more. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share this video with someone else, then drop down in the comments and let me know your thoughts about this case. Is this the break Sherrone Moore is hoping for? Will the prosecution prove their claim that Sherrone Moore is a stalker? Meet me in the comments. We can continue the conversation there.